Welcome back to the channel, everyone. By the title of this video, you know what we or I will try to discuss here. I don't want to go too heavy, but with the notion that it might help some of y'all who have written me about this topic, I'll do what I can to get into it, and maybe we can have a further discussion down in the comments below. That being said, if I'm fully upfront with y'all, I've definitely procrastinated making this video. But when I posted about the topic on the community board, it drew a pretty good response, so here we are. Up front, I just want to say I'm not an expert with something like this also, and we all have unique experiences when it comes to how we react to certain situations, and I can only share mine at the end of the day. What I am somewhat of an expert on is conducting photo shoots, so why don't we use one as a backdrop for our little discussion here? And I thought these two topics might merge well with this shoot, since it was a professional hockey team. And it is what you might call a lifestyle or a casual type of shoot, meaning there won't be any uniforms or gear or any other bells and whistles like custom walls to hide behind for the player or for me. So I've really got to bring the energy to try my best to create a fun and comfortable environment for these guys. And these are hockey players, not professional models. And I don't mean that in some kind of condescending type of way, as most of these guys could be models, but it's just not their comfort zone. So that means extra work for me. And if you're naturally somewhat of an introvert like myself, that just isn't the easiest thing to do. But hey, somehow I've figured out how to turn this camera on to myself and not pass out. So let's get to it after we roll that intro. Okay, so this anxiety thing, and yeah, I can get it pretty bad sometimes before a shoot, and it's so frustratingly unfounded, but it can be downright crippling if you lose a grip on it. Once again, I can only share my relationship with anxiety, but maybe some of you can relate, or maybe you can see a correlation in your life that might open your eyes to why you get those feelings in perceived pressure situations. For me, I don't really remember having anxiety or panic attacks when I was younger, unless I was put in front of a group of people. Even now, if I think about people watching this or me on here, it's frankly too overwhelming. But back then, I was always able to kind of navigate my way around it without any issue. But not to overshare, but then I lost my dad suddenly, and then a few years later, both my mom and younger sister were first stricken with cancer and then taken from me within a few months of each other. At about the same time, my jobs were increasing in prestige, and with that comes some increased pressure, having that type of work. Working in studios in Hollywood and New York after having my foundation seemingly just ripped out from under me kind of turned me into a bit of an anxious mess all of a sudden. So in many ways, I ended up kind of withdrawing a bit from work for several years, since it became hard to put myself out there and in situations where I could trigger that panicked feeling. But at a certain point, especially when you have a family depending on you, you've just got to get back in the game. And now, looking at this camera and actually talking to it, we've come a long way. Anyway, I share that because in my uneducated, frankly, opinion, I think the pre-shoot anxiety we might feel before a shoot is probably triggered by something on the outside of what we're there actually doing. And if you can come to grips with that, you might be able to get ahead of the game when it comes to overcoming those irrational fears. Now, I'm speaking like I have all this figured out, but believe me, I don't. What I've kind of come to learn and how I relate this, and part of it has to do with actually starting this channel, and creating these videos is that we as photographers are performers in a sense every time we conduct a photo shoot, or in this case, create a video. It's just a matter of dropping that introverted shield and bringing out a persona that your subjects can react or relate to that will set them at ease in front of your camera. And that can be an uncomfortable thing for most of us to do, which in turn can fuel those feelings of anxiousness. I'm hoping that makes sense. But let me just share or get to a few things that I try to do before a shoot to keep myself in kind of the right frame of mind going into it. The first is just not to allow those feelings of imposter syndrome creep into my mind. Now, this has definitely gotten easier over the years, and I think that's only natural the more times you're hired to do something and actually successfully deliver on it. But you have to assure yourself that you haven't fooled anyone that you're working with on a set, and they have you there because you have a skill set and talent to deliver what they need. And they know that, so why shouldn't you? At the end of the day, we're just taking photos. It's not life or death. So, breathe and remember that. I have to remind myself that all the time. Okay, along with that, another thing I try not to do is focus on the big picture with some of my shoots. As in, if it's a famous athlete or athletes and the company or team that has hired me has X amount of dollars on the line. Or it could be a client you've been trying so hard to work for and that day is finally here. When you do that sort of thing, you're just allowing that pressure in general to create something bigger than it needs to be. If you can, compartmentalize what you're doing. So it's just getting the steps of a job done, and you don't see it as some huge mountain that you've got to climb. All right, just a few more quick things I'll do based on kind of how I'm feeling on the day of a shoot. One is if I'm any bit jittery, it's a hard pass on the coffee. Also, play some music on your sets. I'll usually let my clients pick it, but that always helps. Before the shoot, make sure you have backups in case anything goes wrong. I've discussed this a million times on here, but have more than one camera, batteries, strobes, whatever. So those thoughts, that little voice won't enter your mind. Speaking of backups, one thing that was getting me until recently was the thought that I was forgetting something. That little voice of doubt, did you remember this? Did you pack that? So I made a freaking gear list I could check off as I packed everything, just to keep those thoughts out of my head. Lastly on this topic, I'll hold my camera on set. Sounds funny, but it is kind of a security blanket of sorts for me. Oh, and one more thing, conversation. Strike up a conversation with people on set. Maybe it's your assistants or the other creatives there, whoever's in the mood. I feel it helps get things going in my head, maybe loosens that muscle I'm gonna have to use when I get someone actually in front of my camera. If y'all have additional tips, I invite you to please feel free to share those in the comments below. And in that spirit, I hope that my sharing this can help some of y'all that might be dealing with the same stuff. Okay, so I know I played some behind the scenes clips from this shoot, but let me run through the lighting real quick so we can wrap this thing up before it gets too long. So this lighting was nothing too crazy. I've got a big 7-foot octa on the left there with diffusion on the front. There it is. And then you can see the boomed beauty dish right there as well, kind of in front of it to give me that extra dimension on their faces. I've got a strip here on the right-hand side, the 6-foot ProPhoto strip. I've got a reflector shooting on the background on either side. I had some wrinkles in that background that I wasn't expecting. It was a new one, so I actually had to add 2 more strobes kind of down low on there. And over here on the table, you can see some of the props, the wardrobe, mirror for the guys to look at. And back there is my tether station. But the main point on this type of shoot was just keeping things light and easy for the guys. I had fortunately I had some help there. A couple of the creatives that work with the team, we've done this now, I guess this is our 3rd year doing this. And so they kind of are there to keep the mood light, keep the guys kind of having fun, laughing, and that's kind of what we're capturing within this shoot. But definitely going into this, I do kind of revert back to kind of those, tackling those anxious feelings. So I just kind of felt like this was a good one to maybe play in the background and have blended up with this conversation. I guess I just hope that a video like this might be comforting for some of y'all, especially like the ones who left comments on the community tab and then have sent me DMs on social media. Because it's something that I go through, and I think a lot of people in general go through, not just photography. In this day and age, a lot of athletes are going through this, and we've seen the effects in the Olympics and some tennis tournaments and stuff like that. So it's a real thing, but I'm hoping that maybe me putting this out there will help y'all. And like I said, we can continue the conversation down below in the comments. So otherwise, y'all give this video a thumbs up if you feel like it's worthy. Hit that subscribe button down there. I've got some big time shoots coming up in the next 2 weeks that will definitely put me to the test with everything I've discussed in this video. And I will be recording behind the scenes during those. So hopefully we'll have those in a couple weeks and maybe a month on the other one. But if you follow me on social media, you will probably see some stories that'll kind of give away where I am and what's going on somewhat with one of those shoots, or maybe even both of them. So, and that's Quant's Photo. Stay safe and healthy out there. And I hope to be here again soon in the next one.